your party members to
Something
get to
you
know
need?
them better. I'd like to talk to you about something.
Yes? What's on your mind?
Why did you decide to come to Ferelden?
My mother was from Denerim, and I consider myself a Ferelden. Mother served an Orlesian noblewoman who lived here when Orlais ruled. When Orlais was defeated and the common folk began to resent the presence of any Orlesian, the lady returned to Orlais. She took my mother with her. I was born in Orlais and did not set foot in Ferelden till much later. Mother was always telling me stories of her homeland. I think she missed it.
What happened to your mother? Why did she leave Ferelden? So what happened to your mother?
Mother died when I was very young. Lady Cecily let me stay with her. I had no one else. She was quite old then, and she had me study music and dance to entertain her. It is unfair that I have more memories of Cecily than my mother.
Cecily. Do you remember nothing of your mother? You were young, it's understandable. What was Cecily like? Do you remember nothing of your mother?
Strangely, the only thing I really remember of Mother was her scent. She kept dried flowers in her closet amongst her clothes. Small white Ferelden wildflowers with a sweet fragrance. Mother called them Andrastis Grace. They were very rare in Orlais. But enough about that. Let us move on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we didn't get any points for that.
Yes? Something you need? Yes? What's on your mind?
Do you miss anything about Orlais?
I miss Val Royeaux. Unlike
Val
other
Royeaux.
cities where the people are the lifeblood and the character, Val Royeaux was her own person, and her people little more than decorations. There was always music in Val Royeaux, streaming from the many windows, quiet refrains and triumphant choruses, and always, floating above that all, the chant, coming from the Grand Cathedral. It was magnificent.
Is that all? It sounds wonderful.
Oh, it would take me a day or two to talk about the many splendors of Orlais, her golden fields, her lush meadows. Of course, there are good things and bad things about Orlais, like anywhere else. Sometimes I miss it dearly, and sometimes I'm glad I'm rid of it. And you will laugh at this, but I miss the fine things I had in Orlais.
What sorts of things?
Dresses, fine dresses and furs, and shoes, of course. One can't mingle with nobility with bad shoes, you see. Orlais is very fashionable, almost ridiculously so. But the shoes, living with those ridiculous trends was worth it for the shoes.
Oh, I love shoes.
When I left Orlais, the fashion
That
was
line always
shoes
makes
with
me laugh.
delicate tapered heels and a
Oh, I
mesh
love
in the
shoes.
front. A ribbon, perhaps, or embroidery. In soft colors, of course. It was spring.
Oh, that sounds so lovely.
I had my eye on a pair my shoemaker was working on. It was covered in pale blue silk with amber beads on the toe. The shoes made in Orlais were exquisite. Not at all like these clunky fur-lined leather boots you have in Ferelden. Ugh, just look at them.
You don't need fancy shoes to make you beautiful.
Thank you. It's kind of you to say so, even wearing these mud-covered horrors. They're sturdy shoes, but sometimes a girl just wants to have pretty feet. Oh, I could talk about shoes all day, but we have things to do, don't we?
I suppose we do. +1.
Yes? Something you need? Yes?
Let's talk to you about something.
What's on your mind?
You were a traveling minstrel. Do you have tales to share?
Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think.
Tell me about the Darkspawn.
Chantry law says it is man's pride that created the Darkspawn. In ages past, the mages of the Tevinder Imperium ruled much of the world we know. In their pride, they thought their magics invincible and imagined that they were greater than the Maker himself. So thinking, they invaded his golden city, planning to take it for themselves and depose their own creator. But they were impure and full of sin. And it is with the sin that they tainted the golden city, corrupting it forever. The Maker cursed them and cast them from his sight. Wherever they went, they spread the taint of their sin. Any land that was touched by the taint became blighted and would suffer no life. Instead, the Darkspawn arose to torment us and remind us of our hubris.
Know any stories from Olay?
Of course, Orlesians enjoy telling stories. I shall tell you my favorite tale of Aveline, the Knight of Olay.
That sounds interesting.
A long time ago, a girl child was born to a farmer. He had hoped for a son, not a daughter, and so he told his wife to abandon the child in the woods. Before the cold could claim her, the baby was found by a tribe of Dalish elves who took pity on the poor mewling thing and raised her as their own. Aveline, for that is what they called her, grew strong and quick and clever under the guidance of the elves. She learned to wield the sword as well as any man, could kill a deer with an arrow at 100 paces, and was as graceful on the back of a horse as she was on foot.
Continue, please. I saw that coming. Perhaps we should continue this later. Continue, please.
Aveline's Dalish guardians saw that she could easily best any Orlesian chevalier in battle, and wanted to show the cruel humans the child they had left to die. They bestowed upon her a fine horse and armor, and sent her to prove herself to her people in the grand tourney. Now in those days, no woman was allowed to take up arms, let alone compete in the grand tourney, but Aveline kept her helmet on and was not discovered.
Did she win the tourney?
Aveline won many events and gained the approval of the adoring crowd. Eventually, she came face to face with the knight Kaleva in the grand melee. Aveline had already bested him in the joust, and Kaleva was determined not to lose a second time. Out of desperation to regain his honor, Kaleva tripped Aveline and tossed her to the ground, ripping off her helmet as he did so. Silence fell upon the arena as Aveline was revealed. Kaleva declared the previous competitions invalid. A woman had taken part, and this was not allowed. But the crowd cheered for Aveline. Kaleva was furious, for he had lost to a woman and was now being shamed. Blinded by his rage, he forced Aveline to her knees. "Know your place, woman," cried he, and slit her throat.
Jeez. That's terrible.
The son of the king, Prince Freyan, was present. He recognized Aveline's skill and bravery and began to see the injustice done to the women in his land. When he was made king, he rewrote the laws of Olay so that women could also become chevalier. He honored Aveline and knighted her after her death. And to this day, any female who is knighted reveres Aveline the Brave, for she is the patron of all women chevalier.
Chevalier. Do you know any Ferelden legends?
I know one, told to me by my mother a long time ago. It always chilled me to the bone. Maybe you have heard of Flemeth?
Flemeth? Morgan's mother was called Flemeth.
Are you sure? Was she the Flemeth of legend? Flemeth, the devourer of men? Flemeth, mother of witches? Flemeth, demon-touched, who dwells in the mists?
She didn't really introduce herself as such.
Ferelden mothers scare their daughters with talk of Flemeth. They say that if you're bad, Flemeth will spirit you away and bind you to her forever. They also say that Flemeth mourns her lost beauty and will steal yours through your looking glass if she catches you.
Flemeth was once beautiful. Tell me the whole story.
Flemeth's beauty was known throughout the land. She had hair like unto a moonless night, skin as pale as winter's first snow, and eyes as beautiful and perilous as the sea. When she came of age, she came to the attention of the Lord of Highever, Conobar, and he took her for his wife. Conobar soon learned that his young bride had the gift of magic. He kept this a secret, for he feared that she would be taken from him. Flemeth stayed with Conobar for some years, and with his blessing, she practiced her art. And then one day, a young poet named Osen came to the castle. Flemeth was captivated by Osen's voice, and he by her beauty, and they fell in love.
What happened then? Ooh, the plot thickens. What happened then?
Flemeth longed to be with her true love, and she and Osen fled from Conobar's lands, seeking refuge in the Kokari wilds with the Chasing tribes. They lived there happily for many a year, till the day Flemeth received news that Conobar was dying and longed to see her face one last time. Flemeth's heart swelled with pity for the man who once was her husband, and begged Osen to return to Conobar's side with her. But when Flemeth and Osen entered Hayeva, they were captured by Conobar's men, and Osen was slain in front of Flemeth's eyes. Flemeth was imprisoned in the highest tower of the castle,
Yeah, you could say that.
there to await Conobar's judgment on her. Distraught at the loss of her love, Flemeth plotted revenge against her husband. She
Like, I'm not
summoned
sure
a
if I
fey
should skip
demon,
the conversations or
intending for it to
if
wreak
you're interested in
vengeance on
hearing them.
Conobar. But a spell
Because
went
I know what
awry.
all this
The demon
stuff says already,
possessed
but
Flemeth, turning her
seeing as
into
how
an
this is going to be kind
abomination,
of
the halls of the castle run red with blood
a
as
YouTube
Flemeth
first
slaughtered Conobar
upload,
and all his men. The last of Flemeth's humanity melted away.
I figured I would
and
let the
at dawn,
cutscenes play out and
she
stuff.
stole back to the wilds to plot and scheme for 100 years. They say she took to her side many chastened men, and with their help begat her daughter witches, who even now prowl the dark places of the Kokari wilds.
There was another story I wanted to hear.
Which one?
Do you know anything about the Dalish? What do you know about Andraste? Do you know anything about the Dalish?
I have heard a little about how the elves gained their freedom from the Tevinter Imperium. When Andraste began her exalted march against the Imperium, the elves joined her cause to fight their masters. The great elven leader, Shatan, born in captivity, rose up to lead his people. He foresaw a future where the elves were free.
So depending on
Shatan
what your
was
race
killed
is, she
when
has different
Andraste
stories
was
to tell.
betrayed, but the elves continued to fight, eventually breaking free of the Imperium. The elves claimed the Dales in the south and settled there in a land of their own.
Because my character is a Dalish elf, she's talking about the Dalish elves.
The elves lived in the Dales for centuries. They resurrected the worship of the elven gods and would allow the building of no chantry. This angered the chantry, and the hostility between the two factions finally broke out in open war. The chantry says the elves struck first, but I do not know whether to believe it. The chantry declared a holy exalted march against the elves, named for Andraste's similar march against Tevinter. During the exalted march of the Dales, the elven cities were sacked, and the elven state completely dissolved. Some of the elves bitterly accepted their fates and surrendered to human rule, living in the human cities as second-class citizens. But others, still fiercely proud of their heritage, refused to bow to the humans, and instead became homeless wanderers. There were the elves of the Dales, the Dalish.
What do you know about Andraste?
Andraste was the Maker's chosen. The Maker had long since abandoned the world when the sound of her singing turned his ear. Beauty, grace, and wisdom enraptured him, and he offered to take her from this flawed world to become his divine bride. But Andraste had an earthly husband and would not forsake him. Instead, she beseeched the Maker to return to his people once more. So earnest was her plea that the Maker was moved, and promised that he would create a paradise on earth if all abandoned their false gods and turned once more to him. And this is why Andraste began her exalted march on the idolaters of the Tevinter Imperium. The Maker granted her his powers with which to smite her enemies. Andraste brought the Imperium to its knees, and her victories converted many to the worship of the Maker.
How did Andraste die?
Alas, it was the frailties of men that betrayed and killed Andraste. Her earthly husband, Mafarath, a chieftain of the Alamari tribes himself, grew jealous as his wife's popularity and influence overshadowed his own. She was also revered as the Maker's betrothed, and Mafarath began to see their own bond waning in significance as Andraste became ever more devoted to the Maker. Out of envy and spite, Mafarath made a pact with the Archon Hysarian of Tevinter, allowing his beloved Andraste to be ambushed and captured. Andraste was burned at the stake in Minrathous, the capital of Tevinter.
But Tevinter has a chantry, doesn't it?
The Tevinter Chantry claims that in Andraste's last moments, Hessarian's heart softened, and he heard the voice of the Maker telling him to end her suffering. He plunged his sword into her heart, and as her blood washed over his hands, he became one of the faithful. Dissenters said that the Archon only converted because he could not stem the tide of Andraste's cult, and was forced to do so to stay in power. We will never know for sure.
Let's just move on. +5. Yeah, so listening to all of her stories gives her a bit of an affection game, but it's a lot to listen to.
Yes? Something you need?
Let's talk about something. I
Yes?
think all of our
What's on your
dialogue
mind?
options are... Except for this one. I heard that in Orlais, minstrels are often spies.
Where did you hear this?
Someone told me this. I read it in a history book.
And did you not think that this could be historical fact and no longer true? Not all minstrels are spies. Most are just singers and storytellers. But some of them are what we call bards.
And the bards are spies? What's the difference? I thought minstrels were bards. And the bards are spies?
Bards are minstrels and more. Spies, as you say.
A
Some
lot
say
indeed.
there is a bard order, but I don't think this is true. Many bards work alone or in small groups, doing the bidding of a patron who pays for their services. If there is an organization behind it all, no one knows who they are.
Patron? What sort of patron do they spy on? For Elden, doesn't the monarchy govern them? What sort of services does Bard offer? Doesn't the monarchy govern them?
The Empress must have her own bards at her disposal, I suppose, but many are more self-serving. In Orlais, there is much rivalry amongst the Highborn. They fight over land, influence, and the favor of the Empress. But they cannot do this openly because it is impolite, and in public, they wear smiling faces and pretend to be civil. In secret, they plot and scheme to destroy each other. It is a game completely meaningless to anyone but its players.
You were a bard, weren't you?
I have revealed too much, it seems, but it doesn't matter what I used to be. It is the past.
I'd never leave that. It sounds too exciting.
The excitement of the life wears off very quickly, I'm afraid. I found myself in Ferelden and sheltered from bad weather in the Chantry. And when the storm passed, I just did not want to leave. I like to see the Maker brought me here.
+2. I think that's all of her dialogue exhausted.
Yes? Something you need?
And then, if you guys are friends, like close enough friends, you can ask her to teach you the bard specialization. But we already know the bard specialization. We already have them all unlocked because I've played through this game tons of times. So yeah, that's all of Liliana's dialogue. Now let's go do Morrigan. I know, it's quite a lot, but if we do it all now, there's really not much for us to do later.
What do you wish of me?
I'd like to ask you something.
If you must.
How did you become a shape changer?
I was not born such. 'Tis a skill of Flemeth's, taught over many years in the wilds. The chastened have tales of we witches, saying that we assume the forms of creatures to watch them from hiding. When a child is alone and separate from his tribe, that is when we strike, dragging the young boy kicking and screaming to our lair to be devoured. A most amusing legend.
Your mother has been doing this for a long time then? That does sound like something you do, it's just a legend, right?
Changing her form, certainly. Devouring lost children, I cannot say. She has not done it in my experience, though in truth my lifespan is but a fraction of her own. Why do you ask? Is there something specific you wish to know?
Can you change into other human forms as well?
The form of an animal is different from my own. One may study the creature, learn to move as it does, think as it does. In time, this allows one to become as it is. I gain nothing by studying another human. I already am the same as they are. I learn nothing. So the answer is no, my human form is the only one I possess.
Can anyone become a shape changer?
Anyone with sufficient will, but the act of transformation is a magical one. 'Tis a spell and thus requires a mage's talents. Indeed, you could learn the spells required if I cared to teach you.
Do you spend a lot of time as an animal?
There were nights when the wilds called to me, 'tis true. You look upon the world around you and you think you know it well. I have smelled it as a wolf, listened as a cat, prowled shadows that you never dreamed existed. But my life is as a human. I am under no illusions to the contrary.
And what do other animals think of you when you've changed?
They do not shy away from me. To their senses, I believe I seem like any other of their species. As to what they think, I truly cannot say. Just as I am still human, no matter my form, they are still animals. Thus they cannot speak, even were I to ask.
I've never heard of magic like that before.
No? 'Tis not unheard of in the remote corners of the world. There are traditions of magic outside of the circle of magi, despite what those mages would have you believe. Some of these traditions are old, indeed, passed down as carefully guarded lore from one generation to the next. The zealots of the chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could. But as luck have it, some still exist. My mother is such a one.
By practitioners, you mean apostates, don't you? The charity simply seeks to protect us from danger. Isn't that sort of magic open to abuse? That's good. Such traditions need to be preserved.
I'm shocked that you think so. Being a mage of the circle as you were. But perhaps you felt a little like a caged bird as well, caught within that dark tower.
Yes, very much so.
I thought so.
That's all I wanted to ask.
Indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an unnatural abomination to be put to the torch?
Maybe tied to a flagpole and tickled.
I wouldn't advise it. But enough of such talk. Let us proceed, lest the dust gather on us.
+5. Alright.
What do you wish of me?
Let's talk about something.
If you must.
Did you grow up in the Kokari Wilds?
Why do you ask me such questions? I do not probe you for pointless information, do I?
You can probe me anytime.
Beg pardon then, while I jump for joy. What is it you asked if I grew up in the wilds? A curious question. Where else would you picture me? For many years it was simply Flemeth and I. The wilds and its creatures were more real to me than Flemeth's tales of the world of man. In time, I grew curious. I left the wilds to explore what lay beyond, never for long. Brief forays into a civilized wilderness.
And you remained unnoticed, but you kept going back to the wilds? It's hard to picturing that, but you kept going back to the wilds?
Would you not do the same? Your world is an unforgiving and cold place. The wilds I hail from is home to me, and I a natural denizen. For all that I had been taught, however, the truth of the civilized lands proved to be overwhelming. I was unfamiliar with so much. So confident and bold was I, yet there was much that Flemeth could never have prepared me for.
You must have looked quite the fool, very daring. That sounds like you.
Equal parts daring and foolhardy, perhaps. Only once was I accused of being a witch of the wilds, and that by a chastened who happened to be traveling with a merchant caravan. He pointed and gasped and began shouting in his strange language, and most assumed he was casting some curse upon me. I acted the terrified girl, and naturally, he was arrested.
That was quick thinking.
Men are always willing to believe two things about a woman. One, that she is weak, and two, that she finds him attractive. I played the weakling and battered my eyelashes at the captain of the guard. Child's play. The point being that I was able to move through human lands fairly easily. Whatever humans think a witch of the wild looks like, 'tis not I. Not that I did not have trouble. There are things about human society which have always puzzled me, such as the touching. Why all the touching for a simple greeting?
Were you upset by all the bad touching?
At least with that sort of touching, I would have been able to intuit the intent with far greater ease. There were many nuances that Flemeth could never tell me of. When to look into another's eyes, how to eat at a table, how to bargain without offending. None of these things I knew. I still do not
None of these
understand
things
all,
knew
truth
I.
be told, but then I gave up
Me
long ago
says.
any hope of doing so. When I returned to the wilds last, I swore to Flemeth that I had no intention of leaving again.
Yeah, here you are. You can go back if you like. I guess the joke's on you then. Well, I'm glad it worked out this way, at least.
Yes? Let's ignore the entire Darkspawn threat and the presence of a simpleton as your only other Grey Warden ally, then. Not that I lack appreciation for the intent of your comment. Thank you. Well, let's get on with it before the ground opens up and swallows us, yes?
Sure, I mean, whatever you have to tell yourself. See, like, she's so easy to gain affection with. You just have to pick all the right options.
Yes?
So life in the wilds must have been very lonely.
At times, perhaps. A world full of people and buildings and things was all very foreign to me. If I wished companionship, I ran with the wolves and flew with the birds. If I spoke, 'twas to the trees.
And did they speak back, and that seemed normal to you, but you eventually left? That sounds wonderful. I guess that sounds wonderful.
For a time, but one can only remain a child for so long. I recall the first time I crept beyond the edge of the wilds. I did so in animal form, remaining in the shadows and watching these strange townsfolk from afar. I happened upon a noblewoman by her carriage, adorned in sparkling garments the likes of which I had never before seen. I was dazzled. This, to me, seemed what true wealth and beauty must be. I snuck up behind her and stole a hand mirror from the carriage. 'Twas encrusted in gold and crystalline gemstones, and I hugged it to my chest with delight as I sped back to the wilds.
I can't imagine Flemeth was pleased.
He was not. Flemeth was furious with me. I was a child and had not yet come into my full power, and I had risked discovery for the sake of a pretty bauble. To teach me a lesson, Flemeth took the mirror and smashed it upon the ground. I was heartbroken.
Flemeth was right, no doubt.
Beauty and love are fleeting and have no meaning. Survival has meaning. Power has meaning. Without those lessons, I would not be.
See, she's somebody
as
who
difficult as they might have been.
dislikes sympathy and a show for weakness and coddling, so you have to be more like, oh, she was right because it would have made you weak to want shiny baubles and blah blah blah. So they made you stronger, didn't they?
They did indeed. To return to your original question, perhaps my time in the wilds was indeed lonely, but such was how it had to be. I find myself at times wondering what might have become of the girl with the beautiful golden mirror, but such fantasies have no place amidst reality.
Another +8, like crazy. Like crazy easy to get her affection up really high.
Yes?
I have to ask you something.
So, full of questions, are you?
Can you teach others? So have you ever been hunted by the Chantry?
You are very cute to ask so many questions.
Easy street. If only real life was like this, and you're cute when you're evasive.
Really? Perhaps we should be wrapped in ribbons and adorned with flowers. So cute are we, too. My mother has been hunted from time to time, yes. By
I don't know, I just tend
fools like
to
Alistair,
gravitate
which
towards
should
the
tell you how
tsundere
successful
archetype. Like,
they
they
generally
act
are.
all
Flemeth
tough
made a
and
bit
mean,
of a
but they're, like,
game
really
of it, in
soft
fact. The
behind
Templars
the
would come again, and
facade.
she would look at me and smile and say
It's very
that
cute
the fun
to
was
me.
to begin once more.
Fun, if you really had no trouble with them, I feel sorry for the Templars. Really had no trouble.
I am unsure. I was too young to understand, and perhaps 'twas bravado on Flemeth's part.
Like, don't show
She
any
was
support
merely
towards
amused.
Templars,
You never
don't
know.
coddle,
Flemeth would
don't
warn
talk
them
about love,
once.
because she
It was a
doesn't
warning
like
they
to talk about
inevitably
love.
failed to heed. And then the true game began. Often Flemeth would use me as bait. A little girl to scream and run and lure the Templars deeper into the wilds and to their doom.
Flemeth used you as bait. Did you actually kill them all? Surely more would have followed.
Sometimes, Eventually. Thankfully, the wilds is a vast
The
place.
minute I start getting
Once
money
they
from this
found us,
man, I need to
Flemeth
buy
would
myself a
simply
good
move
chair.
us elsewhere, and we would be lost within the forest once again. I did not understand the danger we faced until I was much older. I had never heard of apostates or maleficarum.
Don't you regret hurting any of the men at all? What exactly is an apostate? They probably thought you were dangerous with good reason. Do you still think that was fun? They got what they deserved.
Perhaps they did. Still, I do not begrudge them doing what they believe is necessary. The Chantry sees any mages not leashed to the Circle of Magi as apostates, and apostates could become maleficarum, evil mages that resort to blood magic and become demon-enslaved abominations. It may even be true. Still, those of us who prefer freedom see no reason to submit.
Meaning what? We'll fight you to the end? Have you no responsibility to those around you? The circle's not quite what you picture. I agree completely if you say so. I agree completely.
An interesting answer for a mage. Enough of this talk. Let us return to the task at hand.
Enough of this talk. +6. If the lovemaking scene happens, I might have to quickly alt-tab because I have a mod installed that makes it spicier than normal. And if I can't escape out of it, that is.
Yes?
I'd like to ask you something.
So, full of questions, are you?
Is Flemeth what she really seems to be?
Well, that depends, does it not? What does she seem to be?
An old woman?
Oh, she is certainly old. Have no mistake of that. Tell me, how much do you know of the tale? The one that the chastened still tell of my mother, to frighten them into obedience.
I didn't even know there was such a thing. I've heard a little of it. I'm more interested in the truth. I've heard a little bit of it.
No doubt such a tale has mutated much over time and telling. I can relay what Flemeth once told me herself, and you can decide whether or not 'tis the truth, if you desire.
Alright, but make it quick, and so, I mean, don't be rude.
As the tale is
Just some of
sung
these are,
by
like,
bards,
obvious. Don't be
there was
rude.
a time when Flemeth
Don't
was
coddle.
young
Don't talk about
and
love.
beautiful. A fair lass in a land of barbarian
Don't talk about
men,
attachment.
the
Even though she's
desire
clearly
of
attached to
any
you.
who saw her.
Yes, I've heard this part. Just how long ago was this?
Many centuries before this land was even named Ferelden. The tales say that Flemeth fell in love with Osen the Bard and fled the castle of her husband, the Dreadlord Conabar, and that he swore vengeance for her infidelity. In truth, my mother claims that 'twas Osen who was her husband, and Conabar the jealous lord who looked on from afar. Lord Conabar approached young Osen and offered him wealth and power in exchange for his lovely wife, and Osen agreed.
He sold his wife to another man? Flemeth must have been angry. Seems like a fair deal. He sold his wife to another man?
The life of a bard is a poor one, and love fades in the wake of hunger. 'Twas Flemeth who suggested the arrangement. All would have been well had Lord Conabar kept his end of the bargain. But he was a foul man who bargained with coin he did not possess. Osen was led off to a field and slain, left for dead. Flemeth spoke to the spirits and learned of the deed, and swore revenge.
Spoke to spirits or demons?
Spirits first, and 'twas they who slew Conabar. Flemeth did not turn to the demon until much later. Lord Conabar's allies chased Flemeth, you see. Chased her to the wilds, and there she hid. There she found the demon, and he made her strong. The legends all speak of the great hero Cormac, he who defeated Flemeth and her great army when she invaded the lowlands centuries later. All lies.
Of course Flemeth would say that. Which, she never invaded or he never defeated her? Even my people have heard of Cormac, so which?
The truth of the matter is that there was never an invasion. As Flemeth tells it, the Chastened never raised an army under her banner, and she never fought with any warrior named Cormac. Cormac led a brutal civil war against his own people, and later claimed it was to vanquish evil that had taken root amongst the lords. Thus, he was hailed a hero. Flemeth was only attached to the legend much later. Perhaps 'twas due to the Great War with the Chastened that eventually came, but Mother claims not to know how it began.
Do you believe her vision? How is it that Flemeth has survived for so long? The legend tells of Flemeth having many daughters. Aren't abominations using insane horrors? Interesting story, thank you. So how is it that Flemeth has survived for so long?
The demon within her has transformed her into something else. An abomination, perhaps some would say. I know not. I only know my mother is clever, and she is part of the wilds as it is part of her. But she is no immortal. She bleeds. A blade in her heart would kill her like any other, were it lucky enough to find her.
Do you believe her version, Legend of Flemeth, as having many daughters?
You ask if I have sisters. I have asked of this myself. The stories tell of many witches of the wilds after all, not just the one. And these tales existed long before I did. Flemeth refuses to speak of other daughters, if they existed. So, should I believe I am her first? I doubt that too.
Why would she refuse to speak of them?
The Chastened tell of a falling out between Flemeth and her daughters. They say that one day she hunted them all through the wilds and ate their hearts. It may be true. I have never seen another witch or heard of one. Perhaps one day Flemeth will eat my heart as well.
Do you believe her version?
I do not believe everything that Flemeth claims. Oft it seems her bitterness has colored her memories. But on the whole, yes, I believe this tale, if not all.
An interesting story, thank you.
Flemeth tells it with far more embellishment than I, but you are welcome. Dare I ask of your own mother? Few are abominations of legend, 'tis true, but I find myself curious nevertheless.
My mother died a long time ago. This is nothing really to say about her. I love her. What else do you want to know? My mother died a long time ago.
Ah, then you have my sympathies for what it is worth. Which is very little, I am certain. It matters not. Let us move on.
If you say anything regarding love or attachment, again, it's a bad thing. She'll be like, love? What a useless emotion.
Yes? We are in camp, so 'tis as
Come
good a
on,
time
let's see
as
if we
any.
can get that smooch.
What's this? 'Tis a rather odd discussion you seem to desire, leaning in so closely.
Do you object?
Not unless you stop.
See, super easy. I don't know why she's way easier to romance than Liliana is. Liliana requires more story development. But yeah, we'll leave it there for now. I'm pretty sure we could have the sex scene if we wanted at this point.
Ah, it's good to see you, my timely rescuer.
But we'll save that for another time.
At your service.
I'll probably have to escape out of it.
Before you say anything,
Anyway.
I do recall that your business is
What are you
private.
two doing in
But
here?
I saw your camp and couldn't help but stop. Is there anywhere safer to sleep? I think not. I'm perfectly willing to offer you a fine discount for the inconvenience of our presence. How does that sound? Good? Yes?
You're free to stay. Just mind yourselves. Let me see your wares. What are you? You're free to stay. Just mind yourselves.
Wonderful. Thank the gentleman, won't you, boy?
Thank you, sir.
Help me, sir. Me clothes have been shot black by some mysterious
You
force.
should need enchantments, simply talk to my boy. Otherwise, come speak with me.
Me clothes aren't loading in correctly, sir. Enchantment.
Hello.
The boy's a bit simple, but he's rather good with enchantments. One of those tranquil fellas actually called him what was it now? A savant. I had no idea such a thing
A
existed.
savant. Sorry, it's because my cat's on the floor and he's very adorable. What enchantments does he do?
He can fold lyrium into almost any weapon or piece of armor, though naturally some of the more extravagant materials will take more lyrium than others. It's a process that some of the master smiths back in Orzammar will perform, but my boy here is just as adept at it. Isn't that right, boy?
Enchantment.
And
Oh,
there
you poor
have
boy.
it.
So simple be he. I want some enchanting done. Let's see what other goods you have.
Oh, certainly, I can do that for you. Just come with me.
Yeah, my game's lagging a bit. I wonder if it, like, I hope my processor isn't getting really hot, because that would suck. I can sell this, sell that. Barbarian helmet. Sell that. Sell this clothing. Tevinter Magister Cowl. I mean, we're gonna turn Wynn into a blood mage, but I don't think we're gonna have her in the party. Although, we do need a healer. The Spell Ward. 30 gold, but it's so good. Really expensive. I'll sell these acid flasks. I haven't used them. Stamina draft. Lesser stamina draft. We'll keep these lyrium potions. We have nothing else to sell. If we buy these, I fear we... A physical technique of arcane technique. Talent or spell, but is rendered useless afterwards. Spend on a talent or spell, but is rendered useless afterwards. I don't know if there's an extra spell that I want that I could use right now, so I'll just hold on to my money until then. These are all special gifts that are part of a DLC that I have that like gives really, really, really high affection. So I'm not going to use them right now, but I will buy stuff that he has that just has like randomly lying around. I'll buy this backpack for sure. The more space we have, the better. I do want this spell ward though. I really do. 2 magic, 3 armor, spell resistance, 9 defense, 4 armor, 3 I can sell that. You can sell this chantry robe too. Havard's Aegis. I'll sell that. Not using it. And I'll buy the spell ward. It's expensive, but it's really good. Oathkeeper. Willpower. Ooh, health regen. I should give this to Alistair, as a matter of fact. Which is what I'm going to do. Talking to this guy opens up another DLC that we have called Soldier's Peak. We're not going to go there right now. Like, we could, but I'm not sure, like, when it's best to do DLC in this game. I don't know if I should do it as soon as possible, or if I should wait until we have all of our party members. I kind of like to do that. I'm Solarian. I've never heard of you.
Really? He never told you of old Levy?
Never told you of old Levity,
but
Deputy.
Here I am carrying on while you have a blight to stop. Don't want to waste your time.
Your eyes are
but you see, Duncan
such a nice color of blue.
Together we'd look into something important for the Wardens. And for me.
Uh-huh.
The poor Duncans. Well, no more.
Get on with it, dude.
A tragedy it is, at that. But I know he would want his work carried on.
Yeah, yeah.
His pledge fulfilled.
What promises did Duncan make to you?
My family, well, past a bit checkered to see. Nobles look at us with disdain. My great-great-grandmother, Sophia Dryden, was the last Warden commander of Ferelden back when the Wardens were known as freeloaders. So King Olin banished the Wardens, and he took House Dryden's land and titles.
Just tell me what I need to know.
Duncan wanted to reclaim the old Grey Warden base, Soldier's Peak, and perhaps we'll uncover evidence to restore my family's honour along the way. Nobody's been to Soldier's Peak since the Grey Wardens were banished, but I found a way. They say it's haunted, and it's certainly dangerous. Will you help me?
Your family's faith will be rewarded. I will help you.
1,000 blessings upon you, Warden. I'll mark down the location.
And 1,000 curses on our enemy.
We'll pick our way through the tunnels together.
Yeah, we won't be going there now. But we will be going there at some point. We will go. So what do we have right now? Oh, this is gonna totally blow that out of the water. +5 willpower, 1 health regen in combat, 6 health regen while exploring, 20% spell resistance, and 10% chance to dodge attacks. Very nice. 2 strength, 2 constitution. Right. I'm gonna give him that Oathkeeper. 25 strength. Ugh. We will get that as soon as we possibly can. I guess I could talk to him. Get his dialogue out of the way.
What do you need?
Wanted to ask you something.
Ask away.
What can a Templar do exactly?
Essentially, they're trained to fight. The Chantry would tell you that the Templars exist simply to defend. But don't let them fool you. They're an army. The other main purpose for a Templar is, of course, to hunt mages. To that end, we train in talents that drain mana and disrupt spells.
So couldn't others learn these talents? So Templars use magic themselves?
You could call it that, sure. The Chantry doesn't look on it the same way, however, since really our talents only work on mages. Against a regular person, I'm just a guy in a metal suit.
Just some guy. Couldn't others learn these talents?
Perhaps, but there usually isn't much of an opportunity. The Chantry keeps a close rein on its Templars. We are given lyrium to help develop our magical talents, you see.
Lyrium.
Which means we become addicted. And since the Chantry controls the lyrium trade with the dwarves, well, I'm sure you can put 2 and 2 together.
So you were addicted to this lyrium?
Thankfully, no. You only start receiving lyrium once you've taken your vows. You don't need lyrium in order to learn the Templar talents. Lyrium just makes Templars' talents more effective. Or so I was told. Maybe it doesn't even do that. The Chantry usually doesn't let their Templars get away either, so they can spread their secrets. I'm a bit of an exception. Lucky me.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I'm a bit of a lucky breed, or whatever the hell I said.
What do you need?
I want to ask you something.
Ask away.
Tell me about the Grey Wardens.
Such as they are.
Where are the nearest Grey Wardens from here?
That's a good question. There's plenty in Orlais, but who knows where they might be found. And the nearest Orlesian city is weeks away. If we go north and cross the sea, there's bound to be some in the Free Marches. Again, however, I just don't know where. I don't know anything about Grey Wardens in other lands.
Is there a headquarters somewhere?
Here in Ferelden, there's our compound in Denerim, the palace, but that's it. Loghain will have control over that and be watching it, no doubt. Beyond that, the only place I know of is Weishaupt Fortress. That's the headquarters of all Grey Wardens in Neanderthals, 1,000 miles from here. But I've no idea how to even contact them. So unless we try to get back to the compound in Denerim, I suppose the answer is no.
White capital, I think.
There's nowhere for us to go.
Das Haupt. So what happens now that there's just 2 of us?
I imagine that eventually the Grey Wardens outside of Ferelden will wonder what's happened. Why there's no contact from Duncan or someone. They'll send someone eventually. Though who knows what Loghain's people in Denerim will tell them. Maybe they won't send anyone. We could try to contact them. But that would mean leaving Ferelden, and even if we did, they couldn't come back with us in time to stop the Blight. So that means whatever happens, it's up to us.
Will we need to start rebuilding the Order? What would happen if we just left? No more questions. When do you start rebuilding the Order?
I mean, eventually we would have to use the joining to make more Grey Wardens, right? But I don't know how to do the joining, or what's involved. I know it involves lyrium and some other magic, and that it's really difficult to prepare, but that's it. Unless we can find out more about the joining, I guess we better get used to the idea that there might only be 2 of us for now. Until more come from elsewhere.
I have no more questions.
About the Grey Wardens, anyhow. Fair enough. What do you need? Ask away.
So how did you become a Grey Warden?
Same way you did. You drink some blood, you choke on it, and pass out. You haven't forgotten already, have you?
Haha, very funny.
I do my best. What can I say? Let's see, I was in the Chantry before. I trained for many years to become a Templar, in fact. That's where I learned most of my skills.
You don't seem like the religious sort. You were a mage hunter? What skills might those be? You don't seem like the religious sort.
You're telling me I was banished to the kitchens to scour the pots more times than I can count. And that's a lot. I can count pretty high. The Grand Cleric didn't want to let me go. Duncan was forced to conscript me, actually, and was she ever furious when he did. I thought she was going to have us both arrested. I was lucky.
You think Duncan took pity on you? You think it's better than being a Templar? Why did the Grand Cleric want to keep you?
I wondered that myself. It's not as if she valued me highly. I think she just didn't want to give anything to the Grey Wardens is all. The Chantry didn't lose much. And I think I can do more fighting the Blight anyhow, rather than sitting in a temple somewhere. I'll always be thankful to Duncan for recruiting me. If it hadn't been for him, you know, I wouldn't have.
I'm sorry.
No, it's... I'm sorry. I shouldn't be. It's fine. He died.
Don't look at me.
They all did. Come on, let's go. I think I'm done talking.
Done talking. +1, eh?
What do you need?
Do you want to talk about Duncan?
You don't have to do that. I know you didn't know him as long as I did.
Just thought you might need to talk.
I should have handled it better. Duncan warned me right from the beginning that this could happen. Any of us could die in battle. I shouldn't have lost it, not with so much as riding on us, not with the Blight and everything. I'm sorry.
No harm done, Alistair.
I'd like to have a proper funeral for him. Maybe once this is all done, if we're still alive. I don't think he had any family to speak of.
He had you.
I suppose he did. It probably sounds stupid, but part of me wishes I was with him, in the battle. I feel like I abandoned him.
No, I understand completely.
Of course. I'd be dead then, wouldn't I? It's not like that would make him happier. I think he came from High Ever, or so he said. Maybe I'll go up there sometime. See about putting up something in his honor. I don't know. Have you had someone close to you die? Not that I mean to pry, I'm just...
I've lost enough to know what you're going through. No, not really. Not since I went to the tower. I'd rather not talk about it.
Yes, I imagine you really have, haven't you? Thank you. Really,
I imagine you have.
Good to talk about it, at least a little.
Maybe I'll go to High Ever with you when you go.
I'd like that. So would he, I think.
+5.
What do you need?
I'd like to ask you something.
Ask away.
So you said this Arl Eamon raised you?
Did I say that? I meant that dogs raised me. Giant slobbering dogs from the Anderfells. A whole pack of them, in fact.
It's not what I remember you telling Flemeth. That would explain the smell. I thought you were raised by the Chantry. Really? That must have been tough for them. That would explain the smell.
Well, it wasn't until I was 8 that I discovered you didn't have to lick yourself clean. Old habits die hard, you know.
That would explain the breath as well, then.
And my table manners, too. Though, come to think of it, they weren't all that different from the other Templars. Or did I dream all of that? Funny the dreams you'll have when you sleep on a cold, hard ground, isn't it?
I dream of becoming a Grey Warden. Oh, wait.
Point taken. Let's see, how do I explain this? I'm a bastard. And before you make any smart comments, I mean the fatherless kind. My mother was a servant girl in Redcliffe Castle who died when I was very young. Our Lehman wasn't my father, but he took me in anyhow and put a roof over my head. He was good to me, and he didn't have to be. I respect the man, and I don't blame him anymore for sending me off to the Chantry once I was old enough.
Why did he send you off to the Chantry?
Our Lehman eventually married a young woman from Orlais, which caused all sorts of problems between him and the king because it was so soon after the war. But he loved her. Anyhow, the new Arlessa resented the rumors which pegged me as his bastard. They weren't true, but of course they existed. The Arl didn't care, but she did. So off I was packed to the nearest monastery at age 10, just as well. The Arlessa made sure the castle wasn't a home to me by that point. She despised me.
You were probably luckier than most orphans. Wasn't it inappropriate for the Arl to raise an orphan? What an awful thing to do with a child. That sounds like a bunch of whining. Sounds like an awful thing to do.
Maybe. She felt threatened by my presence, I can see that now. I can't say I blame her. She wondered if the rumors were true herself, I bet. I remember I had an amulet with Andraste's holy symbol on it. The only thing I had of my mother's. I was so furious at being sent away, I tore it off and threw it at the wall and it shattered. Stupid, stupid thing to do. The Arl came by the monastery a few times to see how I was, but I was stubborn. I hated it there, and blamed him for everything. And eventually, he just stopped coming.
And you think the Arl will help us? And you're sure he isn't your father? You were young.
And raised by dogs. Or I may as well have been, the way I acted. But maybe all young bastards act like that. I don't know. All I know is that the Arl is a good man, and well loved by the people. He also was King Kaelin's uncle, so he has a personal motivation to see Loghain pay for what he did. Anyway, that's really all there is to the story.
+4.
What do you need?
I'd like to ask you something.
Ask away.
I think that's... Why have you remained a Templar if you hate the Chantry?
Have you seen the uniform? It's not only stylish, but well made. I'm a sucker for good tailoring.
I thought Templars wore heavy plate mostly. In that case, you should have become a mage. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen you wear it. Not this again. In that case, you should have become a mage.
Oh, you aren't kidding. I think the Templar uniforms are as colorful as they are just so the Templars didn't feel dull in comparison. Last thing you want when you're about to take down some Maleficar out in the woods is to have him point and laugh at your taste in clothing, am I right?
So this is where you deflect questions with humor, right?
I'd use my shield if I could, but I think you might actually spot me hiding behind it. You don't really want to know about my being a Templar,
Poke.
It's really quite boring.
I do really want to know, yes.
Poke. Tell me everything about your life, Alistair. All right, if you insist. It's not like we have anything better to do, right? The truth of the matter is that I did hate going to the monastery. The initiates from poor families thought I put on airs, while the noble ones called me a bastard and ignored me. I felt like Arl Eamon had cast me off, unwanted, and I was determined to be bitter. But I took some solace in the training itself, I guess. I was actually quite good at it.
What did you enjoy about the training?
The education, mostly, but also the discipline. You need to have a disciplined mind in order to use the abilities we have. It was difficult, but rewarding. I never really felt at home anywhere, though, until I joined the Grey Wardens. And Duncan felt my Templar abilities might be useful for when we encountered Darkspawn magic, so I kept it up. What about you? Do you have anywhere you consider home?
Home is wherever camp is. We're travelers now.
We won't always be traveling like this, you know. Once the war is over, once the Blight is... well, a time will come when we'll have to think about having a real home again. Though that seems like a far ways off. And I suppose the Grey Wardens are gone for good. Either way.
You can always keep traveling.
Maybe. Could you? I don't know what I'd find out there that would be any different. I guess it would depend on where I was going. Anyhow, now I've sidetracked us. We'd better get back to what we're supposed to be doing right now. What do you need?
I'd like to ask